Welcome back to the National Hockey Podcast. It has been a rough week in Islanders country, and if we needed any further evidence that I'm hurting right now before the show, I just wanted to look at the upcoming schedule. And I meant to type in Islanders schedule, but what I typed in was Islanders struggle. So just
that sums it up pretty much right there. Let's just wrap it up.
Yeah, honestly, I thought about us just doing a video on Twitter or something like really quick,
Yeah.
and it's being like, we don't have anything to discuss this week because we are. And what I tweeted was I was thinking about all day. Are we just gonna blow a gasket, or are we just gonna sit here in silence for 40 minutes? Because I don't know what the like. We'll find a middle ground, but I didn't see that path forward. Like I came up with notes, but I don't really have the roadmap. I'm hoping it helps, but yeah,
Please rate, review, and subscribe.
yeah, wherever you listen to or watch the show. So it's funny because I obviously took a little bit of time, matinee game, gave me some extra time to think about this team and what we were going to do today. And I think I wanted to ground the conversation before we really start in that this is a team I think in the beginning of the season that we really believed in. And that after a while, I think we really genuinely believed in, that we thought most of the pieces were there. I think in 4 years of the show, we've always wanted them to make a move. They've always made this is the first time they really haven't made a giant move. Last week we said it was Wah, and I think I still believe that to a degree. But we also went through that that Lou has made some kind of move. He's during the season, it was forward thinking, bringing these guys in. And it's a team we believed in that definitely had its faults. And I think we're fans just like you, and we try to balance the positivity and the negativity. We just happen to have a microphone and whatever platform we've created for ourselves. Someone mistakenly agreed to let us record on their network. Thank you to the Hockey Podcast Network. You know, I think with that said, it makes everything so much harder to swallow. Like I'm defeated as a fan. And I think we try to strike that balance in we're not a Lou defender pod, but we're not really against him. We're try to dissect these different moments and okay, where's the good here? Is there anything to believe in? Um, with all that being said, and I think James, this is kind of for you because I don't really know if I have an answer for this. Um, was the 6 game winning streak a mirage in a season? Because I think this happened
Yeah.
similarly under Lambert, right? Where they rattled off maybe 4 wins in a row or they had
Sure.
a good streak going. Is it all under Wah, I think, in this snapshot of things? Is this a mirage for this team?
I don't, I don't know if mirage is the right word. I think there's something to be said about, like obviously Waz been around enough now where his system is more understood, but I don't know how polished of a system you can implement mid-season having to change everything. So it might be, you know, uh, a week by week thing for the rest of the year where, you know, some weeks they go really good and then other weeks they, let old habits creep in and, those inconsistencies show back up again. You talk about dissecting this thing and, what's good, what's not good, what's like, what are the positives that you could take away from this? Weighing obviously the negatives are, last week they won 6 games in a row, or the last week and a half they won 6 games in a row. And then this week it's they lose 4 straight. I think the biggest negative about that is in 2 of those games, back to back actually, um, they were shut out. No goals at all. No goal support for the goaltenders, nothing. That's bad. Um, there was one game where even though they lost, Patrick Waugh did say he didn't mind the effort. However, here's the positive. The last game in which they got to overtime. No, sorry, against the Rangers, right? The last game against the Rangers, we haven't heard what we heard from Wah from a different coach before. He called them out right away. He said, "We were horrible. How do our best players not show up in a game like this?" Now, he wasn't talking about Bo Horvat, who scored the only 2 goals in that game, but the rest of the team he was talking about. The best players did not show up, and
Is
that's something we haven't heard before. He's he's a different kind of motivator because before it was, "I liked our battle level, I like this, I like that." Patrick Waugh was not beating around the bush here. There have been some instances where previous coaches might have said, like, "Yeah, we weren't good here and there," but Waugh took it to another level.
But I think
He
we
dug
talked about
in.
that last week. I talked about Ethan Sears and his comment that
Yeah.
it's even the players and even Watt, and maybe this, like you said, is at a different level, that they've been more honest about their play and post-game availability or, the next morning or whatever.
No,
But I think
absolutely.
my problem is, at what point, like, they hearing what they're saying? Because at a certain point, it's lip service, even with Watt taking it to another level. Palmieri said, "We know what time of year it is, how important these games are. Talking is one thing. You can't talk your way out into the playoffs." Again, did he hear what he did? Did he listen to what he just said? Because they've been saying that. Anders Lee had some quotes recently. Barzell had some quotes recently. Horvat's been, a leader on this team despite not having a letter. Waz kind of gone in and out on. It's just lip service. They don't mean it. If they did, they would have changed it. I mean, they did for a second, right? They beat some good teams
Yeah.
and whatever, but it can't be Jekyll and Hyde. And I've used that analogy in other parts of the season where it's like, okay, they're good. Okay, they're not. Um, I don't really know where to start. So, like, I understand that and I can appreciate it, but and there can't be any accountability. Like, what are they going to do? Sit Barzell? What's that going to
Well,
solve?
why not?
Because I think of the list of players you could sit, I don't know that he's it.
Maybe not, but somebody you can make a statement with somebody and send that message to, you know, the Barzells of the on the I mean, the top guys on the team. You can make that statement, right? Paul Mary doesn't have a good game. Okay, he sits out. If I was Patrick Waugh, I would be knocking on Moo's door, walking in his office, and say, "Get me that kid Iskakov up here now. He's playing tomorrow, and Kyle Palmieri's not." Make that statement because the closer you get to a Barzell in sending that message, the more motivated he might be.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's a bad point, not thinking about the actual logistics of what needs to happen here. Um, so I'm not 100% sure roster availability. Like, yeah, they're even now with Bortuzzo, they have 24. I don't know about roster size limits after the trade deadline. I know
Right,
it's different for the playoffs, but, like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna waive? You're gonna finally waive Wallstrom. You weren't willing to trade him. You're, maybe you're waiting to trade his rights in the summer for something. I don't know. And I frankly, I don't even want to talk about the summer because they don't deserve for us to just gloss over everything that they're doing right now to the
no,
fans.
right.
Um, because, and this is a good segue. I mean, they certainly haven't earned my respect, and I don't think they really have around the league this year. No one's afraid to play them. They're not hard, like, they're not physical enough to play, like, they're not hard to play against physically, offensively. I do want to talk about Sorokin a little bit more in depth later, but he's not the scary goalie that he was last year or the year before. Um, something, something's going on in that locker room. There's for a second it changed, and they had scoring from all four lines, and something's going on in that locker room. Dan Saracini from Lighthouse said something's rotten. I think I repeated that a couple episodes ago, before the 6-game winning streak, and things just need to change. Like, I'm not sure what else to think. We don't know who they are. You said it a couple episodes ago too. You're listening to 32 Thoughts and all these other things, and everyone's just asking who the Islanders are. They don't have an identity anymore. There's
Right.
nothing. you're watching a team that's just wasting everybody's time. There's nothing I don't think there's anything redeemable about this season. And I don't really know what do you do from here? What's the You don't just tank the rest of the way. This is way earlier than I thought we'd get to this in the episode, but it, like I don't I think that's just kind of where I'm at. Like it's just reductionist kind of thought on this. Now what? Is it worth making the playoffs? You could argue a week ago you could have argued, look, that's a series and a half of wins right there. That's they're out of the first round and midway through the amount of games they need to win in the second. And then they lose 4 in a row and you're like, "All right, that's a sweep the other way." They're so terribly inconsistent. Is it worth it? Forget about the money for a second. The gate revenue and whatever. Is it worth it? What are we gonna watch? Is this a team that can even make the playoffs and it's a see what happened situation?
Well, I'm not gonna rehash what I said the last time we answered this question. I'm still as soon as you make the playoffs, it's always a clean slate for me. You could completely forget about everything that happened in the season. It's a completely different pressure. Like one pressure is lifted from you, and a different pressure is obviously applied in higher stakes games. But you're not worried about who's chasing you in the standings anymore. And so I think you could just play a completely different game at that point. So yeah, I don't ever think it's not worth it to make the playoffs. I don't, despite their inconsistencies and having just lost 4 in a row, I don't see them as a team getting swept in the first round. Like the goaltending's too good, and yes, they have had their own problems. This year again, clean slate in the playoffs. Um, I don't see them as a 4-game sweep in the first round. But again, in my opinion, it's never not worth it to make the playoffs. Now, do they deserve to make the playoffs? Is a different story,
I think it's a
different
fair
question.
question too. I maybe that's it for what it doesn't seem like they want to. So why would I want them to make it? Give us an early off season. This has been a terribly long season, and all of a sudden it's short, right? There's 14 games. They have 15 games left. And an enormous mountain to climb with this last week was a lot of opportunity to make up some ground and really
Yeah,
they could have at least if you beat Buffalo and Ottawa and you're 4 points, you have 77 points. You are squarely in a playoff spot, and the Detroit Red Wings, who you have a game in hand on, is 4 points behind you or 3 points behind you. Then you play them this week. You play them this Thursday after Carolina. So it's fine, schedule loss, whatever. Even if you lose that game against Carolina and Detroit wins their next game, they're still 2 points behind you. You have a game in hand. You could beat them on Thursday and not put it to bed, but make it that much harder for them to make it. And you've reversed it. You just walked away from the
right.
Wings handing it to you. So they don't deserve it. I
No,
don't want to watch a team. I don't want to care more about this team than they do seemingly. This is an effort thing. You're watching a team with no effort. They can't beat Buffalo and Ottawa. I What am I watching? I'll go to crunch games. I don't need that. I'll go to Syracuse crunch games. I don't need the Islanders to up and down all season. That's terrible. And they haven't even looked like the 6-game winning streak was the first time they looked particularly good in wins, where it was decidedly
yeah,
one way. That hasn't happened all season. You decided 20 games left was the time, or however many
yeah.
games left. It's crazy.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed, just taking a peek at natural stat trick is over, this streak of games that they're losing. The first line of Barzell, Horvat, and Nelson aren't playing well. They're being outcoursied, which means, outchanced by the opposition, 7-11, F5-5, tied at 9 against Ottawa. Um, Out court seed against the Rangers 10-14. So it's when it's not clicking from the top, the rest of it's gonna need to catch up, and they don't have the skill below Horvat, Nelson, and Barzell to do that, right?
But
So
that line was even broken up the last 2 games.
no, it was. I'm looking at here. When it was broken up. You had Barzell with McLean and Anders Lee. You had Barzell with McLean and Simone Holmstrom, and yeah, they were broken up at times for sure. Um, but listen, changing lines mid game is not ideal. Sometimes it works, but not all the time. And it, we I think what we're seeing is, and it's kind of like what we saw with Trotz. Perhaps we're seeing a roster that at times overachieves a bit under, a head coach who knows how to get the most out of his players. Because I think that's what Wad does. At times, he knows how to get the most out of his guys. But then there are just some weeks where, they're not having it, and they don't. So, a part of this is what we've been talking about for a long time, and it goes back to, it's a bit of roster construction. You mentioned someone had said to you maybe something's rotting in that room. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe there's just not enough talent on this team because I look at teams that they lost to, the Sabres, the Senators, right? Those aren't the best teams, but they're young.
That's an understatement of the season.
Yes, but they're young, they're fast, and they're talented. And they can make these skill plays that change games. And
I don't
again,
even know that that's the case. It's the
but listen,
overtime goal
listen.
was Pelech fucking up. It wasn't the getting
Oh yeah,
outskilled.
no, of course, no, no, of course, that too. But in the what was the score of the? So it's 4-3 Senators, right? The overtime winner was them fucking up, but they shouldn't have even gotten to overtime in the first place. But a couple of skill goals by I think Brady Kachuk scored a couple times in this game.
He has a hat trick. He had a
Well,
hat trick,
okay, so there you go. All of a sudden
but you could have called that.
he's yeah, he's a young, skilled guy who also plays with a little bit of grit. This is the problem is that the Islanders are again from a roster construction standpoint top heavy with Bo Horvat, Brock Nelson, and Andrew. Matthew Barzell, and then from there it's like who else is going to drive the bus? Carl Palmieri was doing it for a little bit, but he can't apparently do it consistently. Anders Lee's not able to really do that anymore. He's more of a complimentary kind of guy, right? You look at the best teams, the Golden Knights, the Colorado Avalanche, even the Tampa Bay Lightning are playing better now. Those guys have throughout their 4 lines someone who could drive the bus. There's a roster construction issue here. I don't want to take anything away from JG Pageau and what he does, but he's not a driver. He's
Yeah,
a very good he's a complementary piece. He's very good. He's a Swiss Army knife. He does all these things pretty good.
but isn't this a team that we've said throughout this season is the best on paper that we've had? Because now a lot has changed outside of McLean and Wallstrom not being an everyday player since the beginning of the season.
Yeah, there's a lot of
And Mike
variables
Riley.
that go into that, though. There's a lot of variables that go into that in the sense that on paper they look the best that we've ever seen, but they're also another year older, and and then another year older after that, and another year older after that, until we're here at this point. And it's like, wow, this team finally looks good. Except this is the year that Anders Lee is going to take a major step back and have a major regression. And it's like, okay, now all of a sudden you have a major hole in your lineup. Who's
That's
supposed to play
I think
top
that's
six
fair.
minutes? So
Yeah.
I look at a team that stood pat at the trade deadline. I get it. Like 4 years in a row, did they do that? Not necessarily, but they did do that this season. And I was saying this to you last week, you know, and I texted you earlier this morning. I was like, we were smart for not hopping on the gravy train of the 6-game win
Yeah.
streak because we've been in this spot before. But there were difference makers on the trade market at the deadline that Lamoriello claimed was not worth the price of acquisition. Listen, for me, if I'm trading a couple of mid-round picks for a Riley Smith, a proven scorer in the playoffs, a proven scorer in the regular season, pair him up with a playmaker, he's gonna fill the net. I pay a couple of mid-round picks for a Riley Smith because the going rate for a Tyler Toffoli, who, by the way, has 4 goals with the Jets in his last 3 games, was a second and a third round pick. You're gonna tell me the Islanders couldn't afford a second and a third round pick to add a Tyler Toffoli? I call bullshit on that.
Yeah, but like I
Hey,
also said, not to just rehash our entire episode last week, I think there's Lamorello was looking into the future too, and if he didn't think he can actually get these guys signed, I don't know. I don't. That's his. That's looking into trying to get into his head. For me, if you do believe in this group, and I've tweeted the "We believe in this group" 2022 to 24 banner a bunch of times because it's just every time Lamorello speaks, it's the same thing, and I just think it's just funny. It always blows up. But personally, yeah, I would have liked to see that too. If you believe in the group and you think that they're good, give them the bonus that they deserve. Don't just let the team do whatever. That doesn't seem right either. Now they're flailing. I don't know that one player could have really turned this all around. Maybe it would have given them the boost they need. I'm not sure. Personally, yeah, I would have said go for it. If you're gonna sit here and tell me you believe in this group, then in a vacuum, like no changes other than the changes that you've made that you'll defend. But when you didn't feel like doing it because you didn't want a rental, you left it alone. Just based on and you're talking about going into the playoffs and things. I know Barzal was hurt going into last year, and there's always a variable. There's always some excuse, and that's my line on here is they're professionals, figure it out. I don't know what to tell you. Um, but looking at the standings, right? And I kind of misspoke before. If they had 77 points, they at least get the 4 points. They're actually third in the Metro right now. No, not comfortably. Philadelphia would have 76, and it would push Detroit right out. But at least they'd be there. I'm not comfortable with the Islanders playing Carolina in the first round again. We've seen that movie before. It was unbearable. The other option is playing the Rangers, who, checks watch. They have not done well against this season, letting up 10 goals in 2 games and scoring 5. Not good.
right.
Clearly, the Rangers just have the Islanders number this season. I think they play each other twice more the rest of the way in the last 15 games. Not good for the Islanders. The other thing is, if you're in the top playoff seed, you're going to play Boston. Now, you've beaten them 5-1 this season, maybe both games, if they've even played them twice. Regardless, most recently, you've beat them 5-1. Is that a first round matchup you want? Talk about a team turning it on. Not that they haven't this season. They've lost, they actually have 15 overtime losses. So that's not unlike the Islanders, but they've only had 14 regulation losses. I don't want to play them either. There's no path forward. The Rangers might be the easiest one. I don't. There's no other way to put it. So I'm not sure. Going back to that playoff conversation. Like I don't even know what the best case scenario is. So you make the playoffs after making a trade. I don't know. I don't know what the path forward is. And then after that, the path forward is like what the hell is going to happen this summer? Which again, I don't. That's a lot of prediction. Um, I'm not sure where to start there, but yeah, what I do want to talk about Sorokin though. Kind of these last Varlamov played no goal support. I'll give him that. Um, the defense has absolutely not been there. Talked about Pelech messing up. Pelech has looked terrible. I don't know what their underlying stats are. The eye test is telling me it's terrible. Aho Riley's come way back down to earth. Dobson's been pretty quiet offensively. Romanov's n- not been good. That last game against the Rangers, his underlying stats were not great.
Yeah, he was really bad.
But I think what makes it all worse is that Sorokin is very much a human being this season. And we saw our friend Joe Buono, aka Isles Fix, have some kind of honest and hard things to swallow about Sorokin. Essentially, stats that line up to he's not playing superhuman. He is just a regular goalie this year. He's faced the fifth most high danger shots this season. Last year, he faced the third most, appeared in 62 games. His goals against average last year was 234. It's now 303. Per evolving hockey, Ilya Sorokin finished last season with a league best 51.36 goals saved above average. I believe that's what that stat is. Um, this year is like 8. This is a team built around their goalie and not even defense, because again, they've not been good the last couple of years. This is not the team from 2021 that went to the final again. Um, now what? And I think that's it. Like, we saw Sorokin even be human in the playoffs last year. Too many games. Now what? What does this team do? We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Take the action on any of the NHL's upcoming games, including Lightning Panthers, Rangers Islanders, or Avalanche Oilers. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN. New customers bet just $5 on the NHL and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. In Connecticut, help is available for gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 186 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you ride for Varlamov. Is he giving you more quality starts? You could argue that's the case. You're seeing this, or you saw this too. It's interesting to see it with the crosstown rival. The Rangers were going well when Igor Shesterkin wasn't, um, and now he's flipped that script. I think it started after the All-Star break. He was obviously at the All-Star game, which you can you can certainly question that decision, but um, I think after the All-Star break, he kind of turned things around and turned it on. So, I don't really know what it was for him that made him flip that switch, but it just seems like Sorokin needs to have that, maybe that game or that break or that opportunity to do the same thing because we're not really talking about such different goaltenders here. Ironically, they're like best friends, but these sort of things happen. I'm not sitting here and I'm saying like, oh, I'm super worried about Ilya Sorokin because of the season he's having. I'm not. His resume and his body of work far outspeaks to what he's doing now. Is it great? No, but am I going to sit here and say I'm worried about it? No, because again, like he's proven. It's just a tough year for him, and can he shake that? Only he can answer that question. His buddy over on the other side of the river did it, and perhaps it's time for him to look himself in the mirror and say, I got to get back to the way I was, last season. But I'm not super worried about it. Talk to me this time next year if he's doing the same thing. But I don't. Yes, it's a problem now, but
Right.
as a long term thing, which I don't know if even that's your question, but if it's a like, look, the reality is, like, it's a roll of the dice if the Islanders are gonna get into the playoffs now. But Sorokin long term needs to be back to, he needs to be stable, and he needs to figure out how to get there.
Yeah, I think the shorthanded numbers for him are really bad. The Islanders have been terrible in the penalty kill. They
Yeah.
went 0 for 5 in some game last week. Maybe that was LA, um, where they obviously didn't score any goals. Um, I think with Sorokin, I don't know that I'm worried about him long term yet, but it doesn't look good. You're seeing him 2 years in a row just get absolutely hammered. Just every game he's getting shellacked with shots and hard ones to stop. It's not like, yeah, the quality versus quantity kind of thing, and the quality is really low, but it's 35 a game and doesn't, he's kind of doing it and not breaking a sweat. He's still standing on his head and keeping the Islanders in games. I think, some of those games where you lose to the Sabres in LA. They lost to the Sabres 3-0 and LA 4, or I'm mixing that up. Whatever it was, I mean, what is it gonna be closer? They still didn't score any goals. That part's irrelevant, I guess, but it may be, and I don't know him, and I obviously, it's like speculation. There's a part of me that almost wants him to sit for a few games, give give him a rest, but even more so to get hungry again. Like, miss being in the net. Take the week. You're playing Carolina on Tuesday, and then you're playing Detroit on Thursday. Giving him time off, like giving him off against the Canes Sunday to Thursday is kind of long enough. I almost want to give him a week. Like have Varlamov just start these 2 games. I know it'll be unpopular with a lot of people. Um, but it's still I feel like you gotta get him hungry again and itching to get back in the net and not just it's another game, you have to have a short memory and he may be really good at that, but I don't know, get the energy back up. Don't have your routine's a little bit different. Relax for a little while. The problem is at this point they don't have the luxury of time. So if you're gonna do it while it's close in the standings, and maybe Varlamov can get you through. He's 7-7-4 this year. He has a 286, I believe. A 910. I just saw it. Yeah, 910 save percentage. Like he's pretty good. He obviously has not played as many games. Not even remotely close to half games started. So Varlamov might be hungry. He's played really well for the most part. Um, their records are kind of the same given the Islanders' record in general. Yeah, I don't know that I'm worried about him long term though. If this is happening this late, if we're questioning it this late in the next season, when he starts making over $8 million, that is a different problem. We
Yep.
are we are talking about a very, very different thing about this team, and they're a second away from tearing it down. Because then you're what? Lee has a year left. Nelson is done. Um,
Yeah.
like you're Peugeot, like you're talking about a very different situation on the island. But if by before next trade deadline or later this calendar year, Sorokin isn't back to being superhuman, ooh, this team is in trouble and they're in for it. And the fans are in for it. And they're already pissed. There was an article today about fans not going to the games because it's expensive and for this other reason. And boy, do I know if they were good, people would find a way. That half-mile walk from the train station and waiting for a late train after a game is a whole lot easier after they win. I get why people don't wanna go. You can only especially if it's getting more expensive and the product isn't as good. What are you doing? There's nothing even to question there. It's pretty friggin' easy. It's harder to get to a lot of other stadiums and they have people there. If the team's good, it's
Yeah.
it's what it is.
It's a very simple recipe. Winning puts asses in seats. That's it. If you're worried about spending money on players, as owners or whatever, you should just throw away everything you're scared of and then just understand winning puts asses in seats. You want to win, you got to spend. And when you spend, you'll win and you'll recoup your money and everybody's happy.
Yeah, and like I said, I think you're seeing a team that used to have such an incredible identity that was so closely tied with Long Island, and a team that responded to adversity. They really outworked teams. They weren't, even if they didn't have the talent. Now they have the talent and none of the effort. In, again, Jekyll and Hyde, you just like switch these teams, and they're so terribly lost at the moment. And it's like they say it's fight or flight. They don't even show up. They're not in the fight. There's no confrontation to either avoid or go into. They're playing like a team that's squarely in playoff position, where they're having a rough go at it to end the season. And they fall from second place in a division to a wild card. They're they're playing too comfortable or something. I don't know how you don't put the effort in. This just isn't a team that they don't seem like they want to be there right now. So I don't know why any like fans, again, do they care more than this team? I don't. It's the effort tells me yes. They're going out there. That second period, I was watching the game yesterday with two friends of mine who are Ranger fans, and it wasn't really looking in the Islanders' favor. But I was like, wait till the second period. It's kind of close right now, and it's a bounce here or there. But Rangers were out shooting them like matter of time. They're so bad in the second period. That was it. Game over. Haven't ever happened against Ottawa. Obviously, 2 games before that, they just didn't play well and kind of in general. The loss to LA is kind of whatever, but schedule loss back to back, fine. But you can't win a matinee game at home or a matinee game this season. It's just unbelievable. And like I said, I don't know from a fandom perspective. I forget about going to the game. Like, why am I going to schedule my life around the team this weekend? Great times for games. Why would I waste my time with that? Why am I going to do that as a fan?
I totally get it. And and again, I think the article you're referencing, the I think the heading for that was like prices are ridiculous. Why would we go watch this garbage team? Something like that. It's just
Yeah, it
hilarious.
may as well have been, if
Um,
even if it wasn't.
because it's yeah, it's true. I mean, like you look, UBS Arena is don't get me wrong, you've been there, I've been there. It's friggin' incredible. It's incredible. But they gotta do something about, I don't know if they can adjust the prices or make a better fan experience or something. If the on ice product is not gonna cut it, they gotta do something because who wants to go and pay 30 $20 for a single beer, before they even get in their seat? They're spending, like, almost $300. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely deals to be had. I approach it a little bit differently. It's part of my hobby, like with this. So it's like, all right, well, I'm going to Long Island. It's usually like a little bit of a vacation for me anyway, so I don't mind as much. It's definitely not Coliseum prices for things. And a part of me gets used to going to crunch games here and it being very, very cheap. So it's always a little bit of wake up call going to an NHL arena. But I agree, it's a lot easier to swallow the whole experience uh, when the team is winning because you'll celebrate. You're feeling good. Oh, I'll get that extra beer, or I'm gonna get a pretzel even though I had dinner at the arena. Um, Everything just gets criticized on and off the ice when the team isn't playing well. People will find every excuse to complain, and rightfully so. I think the article was talking about how food was under heat lamps, and I think it's getting nitpicky at that point. Like it's not a restaurant where they're cooking the food fresh to order for you. But I understand what every little thing compounds that you don't like when the team is playing like shit. I totally get it. Anything stand out to you from these games that is actually fixable moving forward? So as we look ahead again, Canes, Detroit, um, uh, Canes, Wings, Jets, Devils, um, or the next week before we do our another show. Not easy.
No, um, although I mean I'll be at the Devils one. I fully expect them to kick the crap out of them, but not easy with the Canes, not easy with the Red Wings, and not easy with the Jets. I mean, the Canes are a top team. They're playoff bound, and they're rolling. Gensel and Kuznetsov. Those were two huge additions for them. It's working out well so far. Detroit, listen, they're if anyone's worse than the Islanders right now, it's Detroit. They're sputtering. But there's a lot of motivation for them in that game to, get their shit together. Winnipeg is a friggin' juggernaut. Forget it. Chalk up the L right now. And then the Devils, that's another team that's trying to get their shit together. And, they some days they have it, and most of the time, other days they don't. So, um, look, in his 4-game streak of losses, the thing that I noticed the most is just defensively, they're getting outplayed with the puck, right? They have the puck less than they did before. That's problem A. Problem B is they can't limit the high danger chances, and again, you cited Sorokin's ability to stop those high danger chances last season. He's facing less, although not that much less. He went from third to fifth. It's still pretty bad. But the defense has to do a better job. Box out your opponent, keep those perimeter chances, more often than the inside chances, and get the puck and skate it up ice. It's the recipe. It's the way that they should have, or they were playing successfully years ago, and they should be doing it now. That's really the only thing that once they do that, they have to score, right? Can't go 2 games in a row without scoring. Somebody's got to figure out how to put the puck in the net. So
Yeah, last week they scored 5 goals total.
yeah, it's bad, not good. Literally, right? It's 3 in OT on Saturday. Four goals last week. No, I lied. Sorry. They beat the Ducks 6-1. So,
No, I'm talking about from the LA to the Rangers game
okay,
was
so from LA, see, I start my week on Sunday, whatever. So from LA to the Rangers, they scored, yes, 5. Not great.
no. When you're fighting for the playoffs in a week, in 4 games, you scored 5 goals
Right.
and you let up just a shit ton. They were minus 20 again. They were down to 12. That's a huge jump in the course of a week. Obviously, you haven't scored any goals, but it doesn't look good anyway. And if the only thing keeping the Islanders out of that conversation is the Capitals at a minus 30, who are also still in the mix.
Oh,
And this is a team, the Capitals now have a game in hand on the Islanders. In that mix, it's not great. It's not great. The
no.
Detroit just seems to be kind of winning it. They just to stay in it long enough because they're 2-8-0 and they're less 10. So they're just winning enough games, barely. Literally 2 is enough to just because the Islanders have shit their pants so many times that again, if you just last week lose the game in LA, lose against the Rangers, fine. Just beat the Sabres and Sens. I don't think it's a big ask. And then all of a sudden you're literally third in the Metro. Or maybe you're at 75 points. You are in going all over the place with my math this episode. Yeah, I think you are ahead of just Detroit. You would have been at 75 points. But uh uh you're so close. You It's frustrating to watch. Terrible on the road this season. Decent at home, 15, 8, and 10. I don't really know if that's great. Better than the road, 14, 15, and 5. 1 and 4 in shootout. Yeah, I don't understand. Like I said, as a fan, I'm like, this weekend they play again twice. Am I really gonna make my weekend around these games? Or am I just gonna
You know what? You know what I think they might need? and it's funny because this just happened for another team. In fact, the team that they're playing next week, um, or this week rather. Sorry. Did you see Detroit turn against each other in practice?
The little St. Louis Blues style kind of
Yeah,
have it out kind of, yeah.
yeah. Maybe they need to have it out. This team has been together far too long to, or at least the core of them, to, be too comfortable with each other. And at this point, maybe some words need to be said. Maybe Matthew Barzell needs to tell Brock Nelson to go fuck himself because he's not, turning it up to the level where he needs to be. Or,
That's not the
and I'm
right
not saying
player,
that
but
those. Yeah, I'm not
maybe
saying
it's
that
Anders Lee.
Oh yeah, sure, sure. Maybe Bo Horvat needs to say, "Give me that C, put it on my chest," because you're not doing shit, right? Maybe that's the analogy that we should be going with. Maybe they need to have it out because it didn't work for Detroit. They're still sputtering a bit, but that's not to say that it wouldn't work. Maybe it does for the Islanders.
I think that's interesting, and unfortunately, it's later in the show. This might be the most interesting segment, but I that would be a storyline. I don't know that
Yeah,
anyone would want it to be public. I mean, and in a practice, it is just because there were reporters there. But yeah, it's one of those the airing of grievances. It's either a late Festivus or an early Festivus, I guess, depending on how you look at the calendar. But yeah, they may just be. I think it's a really good point. They're just together for too long. Maybe things have gotten really passive in the locker room. This is a tight group from what we understand, but it might be time. There might just be some shit. I think it's a very, if anything, a very funny thought to have. Um, yeah, I don't know that it needs to be a literal fist fight, but like they just need to. They got the yips or something like whatever they did to rid the demons in Ted Lasso, where they all come in the locker room with something and burn it. Um, to rid themselves of the ghost. I'm sorry for spoiling anything for people who have not gotten to that episode in Ted Lasso. It's been out some time. It's kind of on you. But, it's like they need to bring some stuff to the arena before a game and just get rid of the bad vibes. Because this last week has not looked good. Um, and I literally try anything. Bring a piece of Islanders gear that you had for a long time and burn it, or throw it out, or whatever. And everyone needs to say I don't know, do a rain dance together and try to figure this out. Whatever you need to do. Sing a song together, pray, whatever. Um, I don't know what's the thing that's burning and they wave it around, whatever. They need to do a cleansing of the spirits in there. I would do something. Like saying we're a veteran group, we should play better is nothing. Especially because like I said in the beginning of the episode, it's lip service. Yeah. You could read any article from Eyes on Isles to NHL.com, and they would say the same thing. This is a veteran group. We're surprised. That was what was on 32 Thoughts this week. That was a tweet that I saw going around. Friedman's like, I'm so surprised the Islanders just blew it this weekend. That was more or less what he said. First of all, if you have watched the Islanders at all this season, that's not a surprise. Back-to-back matinee games, absolutely on brand.
chalk it up to an L.
Yeah, you could have just on Friday been like, I don't need to watch either of these games. They're toast. They've screwed the pooch. They've lost 2 in a row. They are not bounce. The matinee games are not going to be where they bounce back. But I leave that for again national broadcasts just not doing their job and paying attention. Or it's the Islanders. They're not gonna. It's fine. Closing thoughts, sir, as we wrap this up.
No, that's really it. I think my closing thoughts were maybe they need to have it out. I like that idea. I love the idea of Bo Horvat going up to Anders Lee and saying, "Give me that C. Enough out of you." That would be something. But
Or I
I
like
mean,
Patrick while riling them up against each other.
just breaks a hockey stick in half, throws him on the ice, say to the death.
He brings in a Conn Smythe trophy and be like, none of you deserve to be in a room with this. Like he needs to be like their enemy. Like they need clearly it's not the other team that's the enemy. So it may as well be your
Yeah.
fucking coach, right? Like, well, I don't know what like you need a motivator all of a sudden. Um, hate your coach. Fine. You need something to play for or come together against something else. You need a scapegoat. Patty, St. Patrick, figure it out, buddy. You got to get these guys focused because they're not going to do. They are clearly not going to do it on their own. You need to be the one. They need to play pissed off. Oh, we hear the fans and okay. What are you going to do about it? Bring a Conn Smythe in the room. None of you are ever going to sniff this. You're playing like dog shit. You don't even deserve to be in the room with this right now. Prove me wrong. I don't know what else to do. Have them and then leave. Have them fight out against themselves. I agree. If anything, like I said, it's very funny to think about. Maybe it'll work. I don't really want them to fist fight, but I don't know.
Just
At
like a
least it would,
little, just like get a little heated, get a little tussle going in there.
but it would show something. It would show some fire. Like
Yeah, that's what I
it
mean.
would
Like they show that they care.
it would show that they care. That is not the way to express that, but yes, it is a way. And in the hockey world, it is not a regular office situation. So I guess that's maybe what you do. But I know you need to go, so we're gonna wrap this up. Please rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. Follow us on social media at Nasserman Hockey, mainly Twitter. You can find James' work at New Jersey Hockey Now. And James, break this curse. We need something here.
Until next time, all. Let's have a fight in practice.